Joining us now on the line is Eli Lake, a national security correspondent for the Daily Beast, all-round good guy. Eli, the situation in Ukraine, let me see if I can sort of put this very quickly. Putin called Obama on Friday. There have been further meetings on the diplomatic level, and this as some 50,000 Russian troops are massed near the border with Ukraine. Where are we in regards to Ukraine this morning?
It's just an exercise. I mean, President Obama had a reset with Russia. Everything's fine. I mean, that's why they call it smart power.
Now tell me the truth.
Well, I think, first of all, nobody knows, except for Vladimir Putin and his inner circle, what those troops are going to do. But one thing I would point out is that when he began amassing those troops a few weeks ago and then decided to take Crimea, the people who took Crimea were these special forces or Spetsnaz units that don't have insignia, and that the Russians to this day deny are Russian. So, I mean, so we don't necessarily know whether he's going to invade. It certainly looks like the kinds of stuff, and people like Mike Rogers and others, the kinds of units that are there look like they're there for more than just an exercise. But again, I think I think it gets to a key thing, which is that the relationship that this president had hoped and thought we might have with Russia, we clearly don't.
What are we getting out of this conversation that took place between? I mean, apparently it was Putin that called Obama.
Well, I think you're seeing, because we don't know exactly what happened in it, but when Secretary of State John Kerry decides to get off the plane in Shannon, Ireland, and go to Paris to try to meet with the Russian foreign minister, I think that tells you that there's more to be done. I think we're really going to see at this point the U.S. is going to basically acknowledge that Crimea is now Russian, and they're going to. The hope is that they will, or they hope that that's where the Russians will end it for now. This episode will then begin to de-escalate. And, that they will not really face consequences for pretty much just taking over, a country's territories, just as they have effectively done with Abkhazia and South Ossetia, which is Georgian territory. I think it's pretty clear. We're seeing now that everything that the U.S. is doing is designed to try to get Russia not to go further into Ukrainian territory.
Our guest is Eli Lake, national security reporter for the Daily Beast. And Eli, I always check your byline over there at Daily Beast. I've got a bookmark so I can see your latest. And unfortunately, sometimes what I read outrages me. Not you. You're a fine writer, but the topics outrage me. And this one really outraged me, and that has to do with Saudi Arabia. The president, of course, over the weekend was meeting with the royal family there in Saudi Arabia. And this time it didn't look like he bowed, but there was certainly a lot of glad-handing going on there. Talk to me about this study that the State Department has done about the textbooks and the curriculum in Saudi Arabia and what Saudi Arabia is teaching their children, and why we are not making public this study that we have discovered.
Hey, thank you very much for reading. I thought that was a pretty good piece. But
but it outraged me.
Well, I think that here's the thing: is that there's no doubt about it that the current monarchy that runs Saudi Arabia is pro-American. They're our allies. They do a lot of favors for us, and people talk about it in terms of the oil, but the relationship really is that the U.S. has provided security and stability and protection for the Gulf Kingdom and Saudi Arabia. And in exchange, I mean, they have helped, at least in terms of some of these counterterrorism issues. But the problems that U.S. policymakers have had since 9/11 is that the deal that the royal family has within their country is that they've allowed the extremist Wahhabi sect basically to be in charge of all religious aspects of the kingdom that includes Mecca and Medina, and that includes the school books. And so the ideology, which is different than actually planning terrorism, but the two are very much related. But the ideology, which we believe inspires people to become extremist terrorists and so forth, continues to animate the Saudi kind of education system.
Well, let's be specific here. I mean, these texts...
Certainly they've gotten better in the last 12 years. They have a lot of progress that has to do.
I want to be specific so everyone knows what we're talking about. These textbooks still have text that says Christians and Jews are apes and pigs. An 8th grade book has a quote that says, God will punish any Muslim who does not literally obey God, just as God punished some Jews by turning them into pigs and monkeys. They may be helping us out on a grand scale from the royal family to the administration, but they're still teaching their children to grow up and hate America and hate Christians and hate Jews and basically, training them to be potential terrorists.
Well, I should say those quotes are from textbooks that the State Department was able to look at and that were in, at the time classified, but now it's disclosed cables that were disclosed by WikiLeaks. We don't know. That the whole point is that what they say on the record officially is they've made progress, but they won't release this study. And what others have said is, well, it's been pretty bad, and unless if they still have those references, then they should release the study to pressure them. So at this point, I mean, I would suspect that there's probably still a lot of pretty bad textbooks in Saudi Arabia. But I should say the official line is, without getting specific, is that they're better than they were before.
All right. I got to get a quick question in here about North Korea, because the North has been talking about further nuclear tests. There was an exchange of artillery shells between the North and the South overnight. What's going on there?
Well, it looks like, one does get the sense that Kim Jong-un feels left out. The rest of the world is blowing up, and it seems like they always want, necessarily to have attention. I mean, I have to say that is the sort of newest development there. It's always pretty tense, but it's also very clear that Obama has really let North Korea sort of slip as a priority, and it comes up when there are, these rounds of things like this, but it definitely looks, it's somewhat harrowing. And it seems that when we know about Kim Jong-un, he was responsible for the murder of his uncle, and, a guy who I guess was supposed to be kind of giving him advice. So, that at this point looks like it's, a tense situation as well.
All right. Thank you much. Eli Lake, always a pleasure. We really appreciate your expertise. Thanks for joining.